Evening, one and all. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide here on the Vida television network. Got a jam-packed show, a lot of subject matter to get into, including a not so well-known medical problem that you need to know about, how your government is allowing some folks to take advantage of you, especially if you're in the lower income brackets. That's all coming up on the program. First, here's how you get in touch with the show. If you want to get in touch with us on, let's say, email or voicemail, you go to chrissalcedo.com to do that, ChrisSalcedo.com. On Twitter, instantaneous feedback at Chris Salcedo TX. Now, I have not talked about the big story this week, which is the shooting down in Texas. I wanted to make sure all the details got in first. I'm going to start off with some of the positives. And the positives are the heroes that emerged from this. Here is one of those heroes, as MSNBC reported it.
I did what I thought I needed to do, which was they said that there was a shooting. I pursued, and I just did what I thought was the right thing.
You know, there were more weapons in that car. You possibly stopped them from killing other people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he didn't know that, but he acted anyway. This was the driver of the car that basically picked up a good Samaritan who used his own weapon, an AR-15, to confront this demonic shooter. Now, a quick word about the shooter. The shooter, whose name I will not glorify on this program. The shooter attained his weapons illegally. He broke the law to attain those weapons. This is a direct answer to those of you out there who say that we need more laws. This man broke the laws. As a matter of fact, this man not only broke the law, but the system that was set up by those of you who say we need more laws, the system failed. The system failed just like it did in the Dylan Roof case where he shot up that black church, the racist Dylan Roof. The FBI failed there. The United States Air Force failed here and didn't report the shooter's problems and his violations of the law, which would have prevented him from attaining a firearm. I'll have more to say on that coming up. But first, let's get to the other hero. This man is a former NRA instructor. Yes, the National Rifle Association. He took out his AR-15 and he confronted the shooter as he was in shooting individuals as they were attending church services in Sutherland Springs, Texas. He's a hero. And in typical hero fashion, he didn't want to take credit for it.
I was scared for me, and I was scared for every one of them, and I was scared for my own family that just lived less than a block away. I'm no hero. I am not.
Now, I'll address those individuals out there who want to make sure that this man was disarmed. Your system failed. Remember what liberal progressives have told us. They have said that background checks, that will keep us safe. If we only had universal background checks, then we wouldn't have guns getting in the hands of people who don't deserve to have guns. That's a lie, because the system has failed. Now, I don't want to be misunderstood here as to saying that I believe that we ought to get rid of the background check system. As a matter of fact, I think there's a place for it, as is our Second Amendment right to bear arms, protect our families, ourselves, and our communities. Because when the government system fails, and it will always fail, ladies and gentlemen, there is no such thing as perfect in this world. We don't just get to shrug our shoulders, in particular when it comes to saving life and limb. Remember what happened when President Obama's Environmental Protection Agency turned that river orange with a whole bunch of toxic materials out in Colorado? Did anybody get fired? Did anybody have to pay out of their own pockets to fix the environmental catastrophe that Barack Obama's Environmental Protection Agency caused? Well, no. Because the liberals shrug their shoulders. Oh, well, it's just government. What are you going to do? Can't sue government. Move on. Well, did anyone lose their job in the FBI for allowing Dylan Roof to attain a firearm because they didn't operate in an expeditious manner and make sure he wasn't able to get his hand on a firearm? No. Nobody was let go. Nobody was fired. Of course, that was Obama's FBI. Now, the United States Air Force, when this all went down with the shooter, was back in 2012. That's right. Barack Obama was president. He was in control. He was the commander-in-chief of the United States military, and it was his government that once again failed in this system that they claim is going to save us all from gun violence. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to be very clear about this. I do not want to eliminate this background check system, and we can even accentuate it in areas. But I do not want it used as a predicate to unlawfully deny individuals their Second Amendment rights. And when it doesn't work, I want to make sure that Americans have the ability to defend themselves, their families, and their communities. Something you have to know. You are the first responder. Contrary to what our political opposition would like to say, when seconds count, the government or the police are minutes away. You are the first responder. And those liberal progressives in both parties, Republicans or Democrats, shouldn't be working against you so that you can defend your family. Now, the press, what I call the basket of bias press, they had a singular focus. They didn't acknowledge that it was a failure of government. They instead wanted to institute more government and work on getting law-abiding citizens to give up their weapons or have them confiscated. So here is Donald Trump. He's on a foreign trip, a historic Asian trip. Did they want to talk about the trade deals? They want to talk about North Korea? No, they wanted to talk about, well, this.
You've talked about wanting to put extreme vetting on people trying to come into the United States, but I wonder if you would consider extreme vetting for people trying to buy a gun.
Well, you know, you're bringing up a situation that probably shouldn't be discussed too much right now, but it's okay if you feel that that's an appropriate question, even though we're the heart of South Korea. If you did what you're suggesting, there would have been no difference 3 days ago, and you might not have had that very brave person who happened to have a gun or a rifle in his truck go out and shoot him and hit him and neutralize him. And I can only say this, if he didn't have a gun, instead of having 26 dead, he would have had hundreds more dead.
The reprobate shooter had several other guns in his possession. He had several other weapons in his possession. Had those two heroes that we led the program with tonight not stepped in, it would have been much worse. He could have left that church and plagued another church or another part of the community. Mr. Trump wasn't done receiving these types of insane and out-of-place questions from a biased press.
Are you considering any kind of gun control policy going forward?
When you look at the city with the strongest gun laws in our nation is Chicago. Mm-hmm. And Chicago is a disaster. If this man didn't have a gun or a rifle, you'd be talking about a much worse situation in the great state of Texas.
President's right. Wherever you see massive gun control in place, you see the criminal element very well armed and the American citizens disarmed. You know, I'll never forget this story that came out of Chicago. 60-year-old black man had to sue the state of Illinois and the government of Chicago for the ability to have a handgun in his own home to protect himself against thugs, gang member thugs, who were harassing him and who were threatening his life. Absolutely incredible. But that's what happens when you turn over control of your city and can turn control over your government over to progressives. Now, here comes the basket of biased press asking what many would consider inappropriate questions for the venue. And here's Ted Cruz's response when he got the same treatment and could be used to respond to what the president was going through as well over in Asia.
It is an unfortunate thing that the immediate place the media goes after any tragedy, after any murder, is politicizing it. We don't need politics right now. You know, I would note in New York, we saw a terror attack just this week with a truck. Evil is evil is evil, and will use the weaponry that is available. And I'll tell you, one of the most inspirational aspects in the face of this horror was that an ordinary citizen stepped forward to engage the gunman, heard about what was happening, and just in the moments that it transpired, went, got his own rifle, and engaged the gunman in an active gunfire. I toured the crime scene just a few minutes ago, saw where that private citizen hid behind a car and took incoming shots from the gunman behind him. And because of that individual's bravery, shot the gunman, and as a result stopped this murder spree. I asked multiple law enforcement agents, what would have happened had this private citizen not stepped forward to engage? And to a person, every law enforcement agent I talked to said the death toll could have been much, much higher. That the reason this depraved gunman finally gave up and got in a car and fled and didn't murder more is precisely because one individual demonstrated bravery and courage. We need to be celebrating that bravery and courage. We need to be celebrating the compassion and love and unity. Evil, tragically, will always be with us, but so will good.
We also need to be celebrating our rights and our liberties that allow us to have that God-given right of self-defense against these lunatics. You heard the senator blasting the press for their inappropriate conversation about gun control. Let me be plain. As in with the Dylan Roof case, the Sutherland Springs, Texas incident was a failure of government. That man should never have had those weapons. Government failed. You know who didn't fail? An American citizen trained with an AR-15. He didn't fail. And he engaged the gunman. And I can also suggest that those who were sitting inside of that church when the bullets were ringing out, they weren't asking for or wishing for a law. They were wishing for a firearm to fight fire with fire, to defend themselves and their families. Now, probably talk more about this in coming days. Let me transition to something else that we should be talking about. The Democrats are in meltdown mode, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, they've enjoyed some electoral victories. They held seats that were held by Democrats. They didn't lose them to Republicans. I don't know if that's really a victory, but yes, the Democrat Party is in full meltdown mode because of Donna Brazile and what she wrote. We now have it confirmed, ladies and gentlemen, that Hillary Clinton and the Democrat National Committee rigged the Democrat primary to edge out Bernie Sanders and to deliver a victory for Hillary Clinton in the primary. That's not all Donna Brazile revealed.
And Joe Biden was still considering running, which brings up another point I want to ask you about, Juan, and that's another revelation in the book. We got to go back. Let's play the tape. 9/11, 2016. You can see Hillary Clinton. This is where she fainted because of pneumonia, leaving the event, the ceremony at Ground Zero. And Donna Brazile says in her book, when she saw that, plus all the problems she had with the Clinton campaign, that she thought of getting the DNC to begin a process to replace Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine on the national ticket with Joe Biden and Cory Booker. I have a couple of questions. First of all, what do you make of that revelation? And two, you and I know Donna Brazile. We've known her for years. She's a sharp, strong, tough Democratic operative. Why do you think she's saying this?
Well, before I let Juan Williams, somebody who I actually have had on the program before and I like, before I let him answer, Donna Brazile, the Democrats have turned on her. They have besmirched this black woman. I thought being black and being a woman entitled you to say the truth only when you say what the Democrats want to hear. This woman was on the inside, and she's revealing all the dirty little secrets. Listen to Juan Williams.
Well, I think this is what happened to her. I mean, she was essentially pushed aside by the Clinton operation. I think she feels disrespected by the Clinton operation to that extent, because when she comes in, it's very apparent to her, as we just heard Carl describe, that they had bailed out a financially ailing Democratic Party.
Why was it financially ailing? Donna Brazile also wrote that Barack Obama, because Barack Obama was all about Barack Obama, he didn't really care much about the Democrats. So whenever he raised money for himself. And the Democrat Party was left to rot on the vine. So when Hillary Clinton was running, the Democrat Party was in shambles. It was in shambles, financially speaking. So Hillary Clinton used all of her private donations to basically buy off the Democrat National Committee. And folks, there's some illegality here too. If this all proves out, campaign finance laws were broken by the Democrat National Committee and by Hillary Clinton's campaign.
President Obama had created, Organizing for America. He'd taken money away. There wasn't really a fundraising energy there. Debbie Wasserman Schultz had not been a success as the party chairman. Donna comes in a rescue operation.
Yeah, by the way, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it was revealed that she was living high on the hog. She was taking all these Democrat donations and jet setting, living very well.
And finds, gee whiz, guess what? This is being run out of Brooklyn. I don't have that power. So I think that she has felt, and she always felt, some wise-ass guys on the Democratic side who run the Democratic Party. They don't listen to her. They don't have value for people like her. So I think that's why she
supposedly said in conference calls, this is what she says in her book, in conference calls with Democratic Clinton campaign operatives, you're treating me like one of the slaves in 12 Years a Slave.
Well, that's what I said. That's how she felt. So let me just finish this point, though. There's a civil war among Democrats going on.
When a Democrat, a longtime Democrat operative, accuses white Democrats of treating her like a slave, I'd call that a civil war. But the Democrats didn't want to talk about it much.
I think will restore confidence, and that's where we have to go rather than looking back.
Are you at all troubled by what Brazile is alleging?
Well, I haven't read her book. I have great respect for her and for Hillary Clinton and everyone concerned. But again, not knowing the facts of what it is, I would hope that there's another side to the story. But that, again, that's neither here nor there. It's almost a waste of time.
Yeah, waste of time.
For people to put their view of it on the record. Okay. But from our standpoint,
waste of time, blah, 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 blah. Waste of time when we start airing Democrats' dirty laundry. That's a waste of time. Let's talk about Republicans. Let's air their dirty laundry. A little more honesty came from Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren.
This is a real problem. But what we've got to do as Democrats now is we've got to hold this party accountable. You have got to put together a Democratic Party in which everybody can have confidence that the party is working for Democrats rather than Democrats are working for the party. And he's being tested now. This is a test for Tom Perez.
Do you agree with the notion that it was rigged?
Yes.
So for all of you Democrats in the audience out there, some of you won't care, but it is a fact that you were cheated by the Democrat Party, by Hillary Clinton, the woman you likely voted for. An issue on the medical front you need to know about coming up next on the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide. Welcome back, everybody. It's Chris Salcedo Show. Want to welcome to the program somebody I just met literally 5 minutes ago, and we've been corresponding over the internet. Dr. Deborah Pat. Dr. Pat is a practicing oncologist and breast cancer specialist in Austin, Texas. Doctor, welcome to the Salcedo Show.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure.
Now, the reason why the folks that you work with and reached out to me, the problem that they made me aware of was unexpected. With all the medical problems they're dealing with Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and all of this one kind of hit me out of left field. 340B. I had no idea what this was. Tell the folks what's going on.
The 340B program is a government program designed to allow hospitals and other tax-exempt entities to purchase drugs at a discount, really for the purpose of allowing them to have a discount so they can provide care for poor and underserved patients. And so while that sounds like a great idea to help to provide this discount to care for poor and underserved patients, what we've seen happen over time, especially in the last 7 years, is that there's been tremendous growth of this program, and that has not actually translated to additional care for poor and underserved patients because it's not mandated by the law.
Okay, and my understanding is, well, first off, describe why it's not reaching the area that it's designed to reach. What is the major problem?
Well, the program has grown substantially. So as opposed to in 2005, when there were less than 600 entities, now there are 19,000 qualifying entities. There's not a lot of transparency in the program, so you can't tell if there's a tax-exempt facility that's benefiting from these discounts, how much care they're providing to the poor and underserved patient population, and how much they're just taking in for profit to go to executive compensation or other priorities within the hospital. So there's not transparency, there's not oversight. Even less than 1% of the programs are audited. And so it's turned into a financial incentive for tax-exempt hospitals to consolidate cancer care, essentially, to the hospital system. So the problem is that this has been about $16 billion of discounts for purchasing drugs, and that the consequence of all of those drugs being purchased at a discount is that it causes drug prices to be raised. So essentially, there's this benefit that many entities are getting. A few of them are using it to care for the poor and underserved, but there's a large number that are not. They're not mandated to do that by law. Nobody's looking at what they're doing. And there's not any appropriate oversight of the program or any insurance that it'll be implemented correctly.
All right, let me make sure that I've got this right. So there's a federal program that allocated billions of taxpayer dollars to defray the costs of expensive cancer drugs so that those cancer drugs could get into the hands of the poor. Looks good on paper. So that the federal government basically said, let's dedicate all this money and we're going to have no checks. We're going to have no oversight. We're just going to trust everybody. And so the money goes out to these hospital groups. And so basically these hospital groups are buying these drugs, using that money instead of to apply it to discounting these drugs for the poor. They're basically using it to pad their bottom line. Am I anywhere in the ballpark here?
You're definitely in the ballpark. But what it is exactly is that it's not taxpayer dollars, these $16 billion in discounts, but they are discounts from pharmaceutical companies. And so that money is being, because that money is not in paying for those drugs, drug prices rise. And so we all feel that the drug prices rise because there is this inappropriate discount applied. And if you're a hospital, instead of spending all that money on the drug, you're spending less on the drug. And if you're seeing private patients, you're getting tremendous margins of maybe 70% on a drug.
Yeah.
It should be used to care for the poor and underserved, and instead can go to executive compensation.
Yeah, exactly, folks. When she says margins, profit, you're basically the hospitals are pocketing the difference, and they're again using it to bolster their bottom line. Dr. Deborah Pat is our guest right now. She is an oncologist, breast cancer specialist in Austin, Texas. So So the pharmaceuticals, out of the goodness of their heart, the pharmaceutical companies said, we're going to award you these cancer drugs at a discounted price. How was it they were? Was this a kind gesture, or was it mandated by a law?
No, it's mandated by the law. So the law is called the 340B Preferred Vendor Program. And the law stipulates that there are certain qualifying entities. So I'll say that those that are that really provide a great deal of care to the poor and underserved, like the Ryan White clinics, like the federally qualified health centers, which on average of these 19,000 qualifying entities are very low in number. But the robust growth of the program has been predominantly in tax-exempt hospitals that have while applied variably, many of them have gone into suburban markets, acquired oncology practices, and are serving largely a private population. And so their predominant service is not in the care of the poor and underserved. Yet they benefit from this government program that's sort of been applied outside of its original intent.
Okay.
The thought was always that there would be better oversight and transparency, but that's not happened.
Right, because, government never gets anything wrong. Dr. Deborah Patt, what would you suggest if Congress gets word of this? And my understanding is some lobbying efforts that you're familiar with, some members of Congress are recognizing there's a problem here. What is the solution to make sure that the efforts being mandated that pharmaceutical companies actually make it to those who actually need to be served?
Right. So it's a great question, Chris. And if tax-exempt hospitals are getting this discount, they need to be transparent. If they're going to benefit from this government program, they need to clearly delineate which patients are being served and how that money is being passed on to care for the poor and underserved population. So there needs to be transparency. That is going to require hospitals to report. There needs to be appropriate auditing of these 19,000 qualifying entities. Less than 1% of them are audited. And there needs to be some accountability that at least a large percentage of those profits are translated to care for the poor and underserved patient population, because that was the intent of the program. The program wasn't instituted just to, be funding other programs within the hospital or executive compensation or growth of a physical plant. It's really to care for the poor and underserved. And so this program needs better transparency and oversight to be implemented correctly.
Well, Doc, I first off appreciate you guys bringing this to our attention. Will you please keep in touch with the Chris Salcedo Show on your efforts? And if there's anybody we can apply pressure to talking about politically, please let us know. Dr. Deborah,
Thank you.
Dr. Deborah Patt, everybody, practicing oncologist, breast cancer specialist in the state of Texas, in Austin, in the state's capital. Appreciate you being here on the Chris Salcedo Show.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
And that's going to do it for the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide. Hopefully you can join us online. ChrisSalcedo.com. Leave a voicemail, leave an email right there, or get instantaneous reaction from the show on Twitter at Chris Salcedo TX, at ChrisSalcedotx. Have yourselves a great night, everybody. See you back here tomorrow on the Vida Television Network.